That table right there, what's that all about? Ain't got a thing to do with people up there, but it does. When we were, pardon me? It's for during rehearsals. When we were talking about directing, I talked about the rehearsal process. The read through, the blocking, the working, the run throughs, the technical rehearsals, the dress rehearsals, leading up ultimately to final dress rehearsal. For the last several nights, and this is in relationship to lighting design, I've been attending rehearsals. Well, I've been attending rehearsals all week, but with the purpose of observing the actor's movement and the blocking and so forth in terms of completing the process of the lighting design, in the sense that I need to know what I'm lighting, because you're lighting more than just the set. You're lighting the action of the play. And so what I've been doing is making notes, and I started yesterday afternoon and I'll finish it this afternoon, programming the lighting computer with all of the lighting changes that occur within this play. And then tonight will be the first technical rehearsal, which at that point we will infuse all of the props and scene changes and obviously all of the lighting aspects of it, and then the audio part of it, background music, sound effects, and the light. I sit at that table during the technical rehearsals and dress rehearsals, where as lighting designer, scenic designer, and technical director, I am coordinating the activities of the stage manager, the lighting operator, the audio engineer, the backstage personnel, and that just gives me a place to where I can lay out all of the paperwork and other elements of being able to execute the technical elements of production. And of course then by next Wednesday we will be at the point of the final dress rehearsal, and all of that will disappear, and I'll watch the final dress rehearsal purely from a spectator's point of view, with the idea that along with the director, we hope that we have trained everyone well enough to be able to execute the show without me having to interrupt it, to babysit it, to fix it, to whatever. But that's all part of this total process that we're talking about. Now, at the end of class on Wednesday, I was speaking in relationship to what I called the three basic functions of lighting. And what I was talking about was the primary function of stage lighting is focus of attention through selective illumination. That is one of the primary tenets of lighting design. The second one I talked about was what I referred to as enhancement of beauty, which is a kind of a weird phrase, but I think you should at least intuitively understand what that is driving at, in terms of shaping and modifying through light, the actors, the scenery, and of course then ultimately establishing mood and atmosphere. And again, this refers to the psychological tone of the play. I want you to turn to page 250. And there's two illustrations there that I want you to see. The top one on page 250 is what seems to be, in a variation, a form of a box set that is painted primarily white. Now, I'm not sure I had even read the side note there to even know what the show is or anything else, and it doesn't matter. But the point here is, if you look at the second or the bottom illustration, how that entire environment has been radically changed through the use of color. That amber color, that pink or magenta color has completely changed the appearance of that set, and obviously changes the psychological tone of the play. You will also see an actress standing center stage with what appears to be a spotlight on her, obviously then establishing focus of attention through selective illumination. And this just further illustrates the kind of thing that lighting can do and does do for a theatrical production. You're not going to see anything near that radical in this particular production because it's a little more straightforward and a little more realistic and doesn't lend itself to what I might call radical visual lighting effects. But nonetheless, this is what we're driving at, or driving toward. Now, if you'll flip the page on over to 252, 253, you're going to see some additional illustrations of what are some of the current types of lighting equipment. Those that are being illustrated on that page are some of the high-end and incredibly expensive lighting fixtures. All of these computer-driven fixtures that the computer can tell it to move, change the shape of the beam of light, change the color, all of that stuff, those things are incredibly expensive. And I'm talking about anywhere from $3,000 or $4,000 a piece up to $10,000 a piece. My budget here wouldn't even allow me to buy one of those. But I have on the board two peculiar looking words. One is the ellipsoidal and the other one is the Fresnel. Yes, I know it looks like Fresnel, but it's pronounced Fresnel. It's a French word. These names, well, they're the names of two of the most common types of theatrical lighting fixtures or instruments, the ellipsoidal and the Fresnel. The ellipsoidal at this point, for an easy way of describing it, is a spotlight. What it projects on stage is a very sharp, hard-edged, definable beam of light. Spotlight. The Fresnel is a little more of a floodlight. What it projects on stage is what I might call a soft-edged beam of light. And what I've brought in today is a couple of examples of some that we have. Now, these fixtures, they come in a huge variety of sizes and intensity levels. Now, what do I mean by intensity levels? 500 watts, 750 watts, 1,000 watts, 1,500, 2,000. You get into film, they get all the way up to 10,000 watts of light. These things can be very bright. And I might add, they can get really hot really quickly. All right, this one. This is the ellipsoidal that I'm talking about. In our case, we have about 100 of these in our inventory and in different sizes, which means in terms of the overall length of it. It has to do with just the mechanics of how these things function, how big a pool of light it's projecting onto the stage and so forth. But the term or the name ellipsoidal comes from the fact that this thing has an elliptical shape to it. So what you have with this fixture is back here is where the socket is for the bulb. We don't call it the bulb in theater, we call it the lamp. This one runs at 750 watts. In the elliptical part of it, there is a reflector that then is intensifying that light bulb and projecting it out through the front. And in the front of this thing, there is a series of lenses that sharpens that beam of light so that it's projecting an identifiable beam of light on stage. And these things then are, for example, are hanging by way of this C-clamp above my head and is projecting light to the stage. And in this case, I've got about close to 70 different kinds of fixtures above my head in this wire net grid system. I talked about the color media the other day on Wednesday, even mentioned it this morning, and the wide variety of colors that we can utilize within the theater to create this mood and atmosphere and so on and so forth. When I buy this stuff, using a sample book like I showed you the other day, this stuff comes in a sheet that's about 24 inches square. And what you have are these little frames just made out of metal. And we'll cut the color. This one happens to be a pale lavender. And these things fit in a slot in the front of the fixture to be able to tint the light. It's that simple. And all the fixtures have these gel slot holders in the front of them. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice is these funny little paddles sticking out of the side of this thing. This fixture has shutters in it, and that's what those little funny things are that are sticking out of it. When that fixture is projecting that beam of light onto the stage, we're able to adjust those shutters into frames all where that light doesn't need to go. For example, lighting this set, I have defined the acting area through this platform. I've got a light coming in, lighting an actor standing here at the edge of the platform. Well, I don't want light all the way down here, all the way out here, even there. So I'm going to project that beam of light into that actor's face, and then I'm going to cut it, slide that shutter in to where it cuts the light or shutters the light off to the edge of the platform. That's what these fixtures allow you to do. It allows you to control the light and where it goes. But that's just some of the fundamentals of the ellipsoid. The Fresnel is another instrument unto its own. This one is being repaired. It's missing its plug. But this one is more what we would call a floodlight. Again, it runs between 700 or 500 and 750 watts of intensity. But the interesting thing to note about this one, instead of having a smooth, clear lens to shape that light, this one actually has these concentric rings in the lens of it. And in fact, on the back side of the lens, you might can kind of see it through the glass of this. There's a kind of a texture, a rough feeling texture on the back of that lens, which makes that light become relatively soft when it is projected onto the stage. Instead of, it projecting, as I said, like the ellipsoid, boom, with this hard edge beam of light. There's a kind of a soft edge beam of light that gives you some variations in what you're trying to achieve as a lighting designer with the lighting design. But again, it projecting is kind of a soft edge beam of light. Again, you can drop color in it and do a wide variety of these. And we have quite a few of these kinds of fixtures in our inventory as well, and all kinds of variations of them, larger ones, smaller ones, again depending on what the needs of the show are. Now, with that said, let me throw another term in here. Light plot. Talked about different drawings that the scenic designer does. That is the lighting design for this production. If you look at this illustration, albeit the people way back in the back can't see crap, or those who are in another zip code over here, what you're seeing here is on this drawing is that lighting system above my head has been laid in, the stage, the proscenium arch, and then the floor plan of the setting. Okay? That's what you're seeing. Now, on top of that, there are dozens and dozens of little symbols on there that represent the different kinds of lights that we have in our inventory and where I want them mounted above my head, where I, as the lighting designer, wanted them mounted above my head or above that stage to be able to do all of the lighting needs of this given production. And so what I've done is I have plotted where each individual light needs to go, again, to serve the lighting needs of this play. Ergo, the name of this lighting schematic being known as a light plot. I have plotted where all of those fixtures are. This is what I turn over to my student electricians, who take this drawing and go up above my head, for example, and then position the lights exactly where I want them. Now, let me delve into something else, and I'm probably going to go into way more detail than you would ever even want to begin to know. But I'm going to start off with a name that I've got on the board up here, and that is a man by the name of Stanley McCandless. Kind of an FYI, Stanley McCandless was a professor of drama and theater at Yale University all the way back into the 1930s. Literally during the infancy of theatrical lighting design, post-electricity being invented. And he developed a technique or a method for stage lighting that is called the area method. And even though this was created in the late 1930s, I'm still teaching this technique even to this day, 80 odd years later, because it was so profound in terms of a particular technique for lighting stage plays. And the whole process, and I mentioned this again the other day, based on the Pythagorean theorem of a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the whole process is based upon 45-degree angles. So yeah, you got to know a little geometry, you got to know a little math, algebra. All right, let me go back to a photography analogy, and I've used this before. Most all of you went and had that senior photographic portrait made to go in your yearbook and for your mama to have copies made to send out to all your relatives. At some point you were probably drugged to Walmart or Kmart during Christmas, where they pulled down a backdrop of a Christmas fireplace when you were about 2 years old or 1 year old or 5 years old, and they put you up on a pedestal and took pictures of it for your parents to send to the grandparents and the aunts and uncles at Christmas, correct? Been through that?
Oh yeah.
With your own kids or with yourself?
Nope. Way back when.
Way back when.
Way.
Thank God when I was there wasn't any such thing or either that, or my parents just couldn't afford it, which, suited the hell out of me. That whole idea, I hate that stuff. Anyway, the point here is this. The lighting for a photographic portrait like that, the lights are almost coming straight in your face. In a photography studio, the lights are coming almost directly into your face. And the question is why? Any of you who have ever used a camera, and God knows, I'm sure all of you, or maybe some of you haven't, about these two teenage girls on spring break at Myrtle Beach falling off a 10-story building because they're backing up way too damn far, way too damn high, trying to take a selfie. And two 17-year-olds are dead. That shows you how self-indulgence will get you. But where is the flash on a camera? Right next to the lens. Boom, straight in. Well, why do we do that? What that does is it puts the light smack in your face and eliminates any shadows, which makes you look as good as you're going to look. Well, if we were going to do that in the theater, we'd have to put the lights out there where you're sitting. And trust me, if you sit beside that thing for an hour with it at full intensity, you'd be able to bake a turkey in your lap. That thing gets hot and hot fast. We literally are using gloves to handle these things that are made out of a synthetic version of asbestos. We don't use real asbestos, that'll kill you. Then you'll have to call the Akeem Anastapulo law firm because you're going to die of mesothelioma. Yes, I've watched television at 5 o'clock in the afternoon with all those other ambulance-chasing lawyers. Back to lighting design. So obviously we can't put the lights where they're going to come straight into the actors' faces to eliminate shadows. Now, let me also say this. A couple of you are dressed up today like, I don't know, you're freezing to death. Got the hoods up and all of this other stuff, but I'm going to tell all of you, and pardon me for saying this, all of you folks sitting up there look like crap right now. Now, yes, I know some of you got up at the butt crack of dawn so that you could put on your makeup and do your hair and all that crap, but y'all look terrible. And here's why. The light's straight over your head. The light is coming straight down on you in here. And with somebody like me who has deep set eyes and one eyebrow, starts here and ends there, and that light coming down, you know, I look like the wolf man or a walrus missing the teeth. But nonetheless, because of the angle of the light, you look pretty crappy. Well, let's go back to Mr. Stanley McCandless. What McCandless did was to play with the angle of light, literally from straight in to straight up, and he kept working in terms of finding a particular angle, and what he ultimately came up with was that lighting coming into the actor's face at a 45-degree angle was going to work. What I've got down here is a little triangle. It's a right triangle. It's got a 90-degree corner over here and two 45s. What I'm getting at is that light. That looks silly, doesn't it? Woo! But that light is going to come in at a 45-degree angle. And that's where lighting design then begins, is with the 45-degree angle. So what you have is that light coming in at this 45-degree angle. This is where I talked about the math comes involved. However, the name of this method, based on 45 degrees, is called the area method. The area method. All right, let me back up here. The floor plan of this set is sitting up here. Basically like this. There's a big archway right there, door right there, door right there, the furniture and the whole thing. These lighting fixtures, they project on stage from the distance that they are away from the stage, meaning above my head or above the set itself. They project basically an 8-foot diameter pool of light. Project basically an 8-foot diameter pool of light. So what McCandless said was, God, that's distorted, is that what you should do as a lighting designer is to break the set up, the acting area up into 8-foot diameter specific pools of light, or areas of light. That seems mighty weird, but I've broken the set up basically the way I've done it. And what I've done then is I've come in here and I'm just for information purposes, I've lettered each one of them. And so forth. You don't see the circles, but you see the letters, don't you? Confirm that. You see the letters?
Oh, yeah.
Where I've broken this setup in all of these different areas. And there's a letter of the alphabet denoting the center of all of those areas. All right, let's go back to this 45-degree business. All right, I'm going to take just area A, and I'm going to break it out and put it right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split it on its axis. All right, now here's where the 45-degree angle shifts gears a little bit. I'm talking about coming into the actor's face at 45 degrees. Well, we're also going to light that area with 4 lights. We'll put a light here, light here, light here, light here, creating 45 degrees. So if I was standing on that front corner, the lights would be up 45 degrees, but there'd be one over here at 45 coming in. Another one at 45 degrees coming in here, lighting both sides of my face so that I am evenly and well lit. I would then also have one coming in at a 45-degree angle from behind my head, and again another one here. Meaning that no matter which way I turn as an actor on stage, I'm well lighted in terms of visibility of the audience. So basically, every one of these areas on stage have got 4 lights coming into them. Ergo the reason why it takes so many. But no matter which way the actor or the actress turns, boom, they're right in at 45 degrees. Now, let's take this turn. Dimmer controller. We spoke of that on the first page of the chapter, talking about a little mechanical device you'd find in your home called a rheostat. That's actually a dimmer. It's a mechanical device that restricts the flow of electricity to some kind of a lighting fixture, whether it's a chandelier or one of these stage lighting fixtures, for us to be able to manipulate the intensity, how bright or how dim a particular lighting fixture is. I made mention of my lighting console up there in the control booth behind you, that it has roughly 324 such controllers in it. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of the lights, the 4 lights lighting area A, and we're going to assign them to controller number 1. We're going to assign all the lights going into B and assign them to controller number 2. Take the lights from controller number, or lights from C, and assign them to controller number 3. That way then I have control in the booth through the lighting console of each and every one of those areas individually. I now have complete flexibility and complete control of that stage set. Even the little wall sconces, the lights that are mounted on the walls of the set, they're connected into the lighting system of the theater where I can control those. At the end of the scene, when the lights all fade to black to denote, okay, end of Act 1, Scene 1, they don't just stay on, they get involved into the process as well. But here's my point. let's say I needed a scene that's going to be performed, the action is going to be performed just in this part of the stage. Just in that part of the stage. All right? What's the primary function of stage lighting? Focus of attention through selective illumination. Which means that I would then set the lights for areas A, B, and C at a much brighter level than the rest of the set. And then I would be drawing attention, because this part of the stage would be brighter, this would be less bright, and all of a sudden I'm saying to the audience, this is the particular part of the stage that I want you to focus on. So what the McCandless method does is allow you then to satisfy focus of attention through selective illumination, enhancement of beauty because of the way you're well lighting each and every area of the stage where the actors will be moving, and through color choices and layering of other lights within the lighting design with other colors and so forth, and manipulating intensity, you're all of a sudden now satisfying the third one in terms of mood and atmosphere. And if you want to know more about this, take my lighting design class and you can hear all of the details for 16 straight weeks. Which some of you are going, not on your life. I couldn't do the Pythagorean theorem without a $250 calculator. But that, in a nutshell, is what lighting design is all about. Questions? Questions? Not hearing any questions. Y'all must have really absorbed that very well. I hope so. I hate it when I lose my marks. Oh, come on. Here we go. All right, let's jump to chapter 10, page 221. This chapter deals with theatrical costumes. Is there a difference between clothes and costumes? Is there a difference between clothes and costumes? Why not? Clothes is what you wear every day. Costumes are something you wear to a costume party, Halloween party, or a theatrical production.
When you wear clothes, you're being you. If you wear like a costume, you're being somebody else, but you're still like presenting yourself as somebody.
Well, we've already established in here, and you're very right, we've already established in here that clothes, even everyday clothes, even characters are defined by their appearance. You are defined by your appearance. So therefore, clothes are doing quite a few of the things that costumes are supposed to do. And that primary thing that a costume is supposed to do is to communicate information about the wearer, i.e. the character. And as much in this day and age as we've got people within the political correctness world screaming and hollering, and the speech police going, oh, you can't say that, you can't do that, you know, and we all agree of the philosophy, don't judge a book by its cover. I'm sorry, human nature causes us to do it anyway. So you're making evaluations and judgments based on the appearance of someone. I cannot tell you how many people that I have met in my adult life that daggum nearly fainted when they found out that I was a university professor just by my appearance and my speech patterns, which can be pretty interesting at times, especially if I mash my thumb with a 20-ounce hammer. I can have a whole lot of stuff to say about that that you don't want to hear on Sunday morning. So are we saying that clothes and costumes are exactly the same thing? Pardon me? Not exactly. Well, how about not exactly? I mean, in the sense that you got to recognize that most of the television shows that are on today, with the exception of things like The Walking Dead and all the rest of that zombie phobia that we have, most actors in, the sitcoms and the, primetime melodramas, they're wearing clothes that came right out of a department store. And in fact, those costumes that we see in those kinds of productions, and you're going to see that to some degree here. Clean slate. They are what we call off the rack costumes. Literally, the costume designer has done nothing more than gone to a department store. Now, for Hollywood shows on television or New York television productions, no, they're not going to Belk's and the J.C. Penney's. They're going to Saks Fifth Avenue and doing their shopping. But they're literally what we call off-the-rack costumes. And yes, I will agree that to a degree, costumes and clothes, they're exactly the same. Because I am quite certain that a large portion of the student body at this college, as any college in this country, there are people that stand in front of their clothes closets in the morning and looks and goes, okay, what is the weirdest possible combination of things I can put on today? And why are they doing that?
Stand up.
Exactly, to call attention to themselves. Self-indulgent. But then again, isn't that what a costume designer is doing in a play, trying to make a particular character stand out, or to attract attention, or to communicate information? Right now, I know where he went to high school. I know what football team that he supports. I know when she graduated from high school. You're communicating information. You can tell things about people's personal likes, dislikes, and so on and so forth. On page 221, the author says to us, costumes are the most personal aspect of the visual elements in theater. When we attend a production, a performer and his or her costume are perceived as one, as are your clothing. They merge into a single image on stage. At the same time, costumes have a value of their own, adding color, shape, texture, symbolism to the overall effect. Other elements or accessories such as makeup, hairstyle, masks, personal items like bracelets, necklaces, Rings and so forth are an important component of costumes as well. Clothes have always indicated or signaled a number of things regarding the wearer, including the following: their position or status in society. You can look at someone and tell whether or not their clothes are coming from Goodwill or Walmart or from Saks Fifth Avenue. That tells you something about their socioeconomic status. Their sex. I don't even know why the author lists that anymore, because there are way too many people walking around here. I ain't got a clue what they are by the way they're dressed. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Their occupation. Way a lawyer dresses, way a doctor dresses, way a nurse dresses, way a police officer dresses, a business person, someone who collects the trash. What they wear denotes their occupation. The person's relative flamboyance or modesty. I see way too many students walking around here showing me way more than I want to see. And I've never understood why young men wear their pants below their butt. Does anybody know where that came from? Where? Prisons. What does it symbolize in a prison without getting graphic? That they're up for something or up to something. You go figure it out the rest of the way. Why do the young men then want to communicate that I am available for that kind of activity as they prance around this campus? Got me on that one. But again, it establishes their relative flamboyance or their modesty, the degree of independence or regimentation. You know, it's funny that folks between the ages of 15 and 30 always want to go, you know, I'm independent, I'm a free thinker, I think the way I want to think, you know, I'm this, that, and the other, and then they got on a shirt with University of South Carolina on it. It means they just joined a group. Oh, but I'm not a person that would join groups, you know, I'm independent. Well, wait a minute. What you're wearing just says you belong to a particular group. And then whether one is dressed for work or leisure or for a routine event or a special occasion. All of these things that would motivate what you choose on a day-to-day basis is the same factors that a costume designer is using in making choices about costumes for characters in a play. I'm going to pick on my wife for a moment. Her favorite television program, her favorite cable channel is the Weather Channel. She watches the Weather Channel about like I do ESPN. Question is why? She's driven by the weather. Meaning that because she is a elementary school administrator, she's an assistant principal at one of the elementary schools here in Florence, one of her day-to-day responsibilities is loading and unloading students off of buses, which means that she is outside at 7 o'clock in the morning every day and is outside in the weather every day at 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. And so what she chooses to wear has to be completely dictated by the weather. And again, the way some of you are wrapped up like Eskimos today because, oh my God, it's 50 degrees, we're going to die. You know, you were driven by this. Again, same things in terms of a costume design. Going further, what the author says to us on 20221, as soon as we see what clothing people are wearing, we receive messages about them and form impressions of them. We instantaneously relate those messages and impressions to our past experience and our preconceptions. Stereotyping, if you will. And we make judgments, including value judgments. Even if we have never before laid eyes on someone, we feel we know a great deal when we first see what he or she is wearing. Which is kind of an interesting thing. Because again, what we're talking about here is getting expository information from the characters' costumes. However, in our general lives today, it is interesting how one thing has changed. 10 years ago, if I showed up somewhere wearing some variation of camouflage, two things would come to somebody's mind. Either he hunts or he's in the military. That's it. He's a hunter or he's in the military. Nowadays we're wearing camouflage, everybody is, as a fashion statement. How the heck did that happen? And now you see camouflage in purple and in pink. You know, like, yeah, go track a grizzly bear wearing that. You're going to die. But that's part of it. Costumes for the stage and theater. Clothes send signals similar to those in everyday life. But with other elements of theater, there is a significant difference between costumes of everyday life and theatrical costumes. Yes, they are incredibly similar, but there is some specific differences. And that's where I'll pick up on Monday. If you haven't, order your show tickets. And those of you who have, you can start picking them up beginning at 1 o'clock on Monday out in the lobby. The box office will be out there from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, as I said. You just need to pick them up no later than 5 o'clock of the day you plan to see the show. But you certainly can pick them up in advance if you have, in advance, placed your order.